Hey you guys, today I'm here with four-time Tony Award nominee David Korins. David, I'm so excited to be chatting with you once again.
I'm excited to be chatting with you.
Yeah, we chatted a few years ago when you were nominated for Here Lies Love, and here we are in the Museum of Broadway in your exhibit. I mean, how does that feel that in the Museum of Broadway, the place dedicated to Broadway in New York City, this room is all you?
It feels kind of weird.
Yeah.
It feels, I know people throw around the word honor all the time. It feels like an honor. It also feels a little strange to have these objects that are really kind of tools to help a creative team talk to each other and talk to actors, all be in a room mere blocks away from the shows that they helped give birth, to, right? And so it's weird that like all these people who worked on the show get a chance to kind of revisit these things. Like I'm looking over there just off camera, like the Beetlejuice process models or the Hamilton models or things like that. And it's like, wow, we really did need those things to help make the environments, and it's just bizarre that they're all here together.
Absolutely. You described the museum or this exhibit as a messy, magical journey on the making of theater. Why is that? Why is this the messy, magical journey for the theater making?
Well, when I was a kid, there was no kind of resource like for this, right? So for me, it was like occasionally you got like a behind the scenes, like making of a video or a movie or something. And what I really love here is, it is messy. The process of making something for the stage is completely disastrous, right?
Yeah.
You almost never hit the nail on the head or hit the target the first time out. It's like designing is redesigning and redesigning and redesigning. And so what I like about this exhibit is it shows people, it pulls back the curtain on like, here's how we went from a sketch to like 100 different versions of the thing in order to get to this. And I really am proud of the fact that, so many people who normally don't get any spotlight in the process of making stuff are amplified here. Yeah. So there are quotes from people who you wouldn't normally talk to, right? Normally you might talk to the set designer or the director. Here we're talking to our associate designers, our model makers, our craftspeople, our illustrators, people who are toiling away, spending their entire life's work helping to make these things come to life. And that's such a pleasure to get to show their work off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned when you were a kid, you didn't have something like this. So I want to know, what was that thing that got you into theater when you were younger? And then what pivoted to set designing specifically? Because it's not something when you're 5 years old, you're like, I'm going to be a set designer on Broadway.
Yeah. I didn't even know that was a job.
Right.
I didn't know it was a job really until I was like 21 years old. I came into it kind of like you through performance, right? And I just loved that feeling of everyone getting together, being in lockstep of a vision, and then getting to have that feeling of giving that to an audience. And that relationship between an audience and a performer is very, very special. And if you have never had that experience, it's really like incredibly unique. So I wanted to do more of that. But then at the same time, I was a musician and an athlete, and I realized pretty quickly that the experience of being in a play and being on a sports team and being in a band they were all very similar. It was people coming together to make this magical thing that could only happen in this one place and one time.
Right.
And then without each other, it didn't exist. And so when I went to college, I wanted more and more and more of that. And I wasn't as good of an athlete, and I wasn't as good of a musician. And so I sort of found my tribe in the theater. And it has never let me down, because it doesn't matter what story you're telling, you need each other to make it. And that is another thing about this experience is it's all about the groups of people who come together to make it. And I think people who visit this would be surprised at how many hundreds of people you need to actually make an environment. And I just kind of got so excited about the set design part of it, because you're starting with a blank box. It could be anything. And I love the language of the theater because it's so abstract. Some of these sets are very realistic, but none of them are hyper realistic. They're not like recreations of the real world,
right.
you know, so they're kind of like wild, theatrically infused environments. And I love that, or I'd be an architect. Right. If I didn't love doing that, I'd do something more kind of real. But like, look at this thing that we're sitting on.
It's unreal.
It's like the craziest thing, right?
Yeah.
Some people would call this a couch, but also it's just like a weird, dreamt up object.
Absolutely. Well, I look around the room at the shows that you feature in this room alone, and I see Evan Hansen, which is kind of, real life. We're not thinking something crazy like Beetlejuice. And then I look at something like Beetlejuice, which is just all the way on the other end. What is it like designing for those type of different shows? Because you designed shows like Hamilton, But Who's Tommy, Beetlejuice, obviously, Mrs. Doubtfire, Here Lies Love, and each is so different. How do you bounce between those different types of
I think the variety is the magic. I know that sometimes like designers, much like actors, kind of get typecast. Oh, they do realism, or
right.
they do abstraction, or whatever. I've always prided myself on not trying to impose my own personal aesthetic onto a show. And I've said this before, but Beetlejuice should not look at all like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Right.
It just shouldn't. And if it does, that's a problem.
Right.
And so I love kind of really trying to make an environment that is truly in service of the narrative and the kind of the ride that the audience goes on. And I think if you can do that, the world should be incredibly varied. Right? Hamilton should look very different than Dear Evan Hansen because it takes place in a different century.
Right.
And so I really love that. And I think part of that is having an internal dialogue with yourself as a designer to go away from like the cool thing or the thing that's like, the current way of thinking, because that almost never serves the narrative as cleanly.
Right, exactly. Well, how did you choose the shows for this exhibit alone? Because you've designed more than 20 Broadway shows. You've done stuff for, not just the stage. You've done all different types of things. How did you choose these 5 shows to be in your exhibit?
It's a great question. So this exhibit started at a place called the Mini Time Machine Museum in Arizona. And a friend of mine was the executive director, and he the day he got hired, he said to the board, I would like to, they show miniatures, right? Like doll houses and little things.
Right.
And he said, I'd like to do an experience, an exhibition about this guy, David Korins' work, because we worked together off Broadway years and years and years ago, and because he knew that set designers make these models to help tell their stories and figure out what they're going to do. And so he said, I'd like to do a retrospective of all your work. Everything from film, television, theater, and in between. And I said, it's too much and it's too confusing. Let's pick one medium. Let's just do theater. Let's just do some Broadway shows. And let's pick, at the time, 5 things that were current. They were running.
Yeah.
And I picked the 5 because there were some shows that I thought that the audience would be curious about, like Beetlejuice and Dear Evan Hansen and Hamilton were kind of up and running and like hits. And I picked Here Lies Love and Tommy because I wanted a revival. I wanted people to understand what it was like to rethink a thing that had already been made. And Here Lies Love because it was just so transformative and kind of to show how you push the boundaries. And so I sort of felt like in getting specific about 5 processes, you could sort of imagine what it was like for all processes, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So which of these shows, and it doesn't have to be one of these shows, but which do you think pushed you the furthest as a set designer?
Well, before we did Here Lies Love on Broadway, I would have said Beetlejuice, perhaps, because the set is a character. But, and every single piece of scenery in Beetlejuice had a light in it, a special effect in it, a speaker, a place for a puppet. Like, it was so complex.
Right.
And then Here Lies Love happened on Broadway, and it was the most complicated thing I had ever thought about, mainly because the set was the theater. I mean, because you saw it.
It was nuts. Can I just tell you, I've seen The Great Gatsby a few times now, and I go to the Broadway theater,
right.
And every time I enter, I'm like, I still just don't get it. Right. It was that intricate. Still to this day, I'm amazed at what you guys did at the Broadway theater.
But you can see that each of those things is so wildly different, because something like Dear Evan Hansen was so deceptively easy. It's like, how do you tell the story with like 7 screens and like darkness
Right.
and like a couple of floating platforms. And so I'm not sure, difficult is a challenging word because they're all very difficult in their own right. Hamilton basically sits there all night, and yet you have to house 30 years of American history, right? Including a war and a lot of other stuff. And so that was intellectually incredibly difficult of how you could make a metaphor for the founding of a country and what that was like in a different way than the other ones.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk about what you have coming up on Broadway. You're having 2 shows this season. Ragtime is opening up at Lincoln Center Theater, and then Beetlejuice is coming back for a 3rd time, naturally. Talk to me about what's in the works for Ragtime. I know you guys are in rehearsal now. And then, Beetlejuice is Beetlejuice. Everybody loves it, and the set is, like you said, its own character in the show. Talk to me about both of these shows coming up.
Well, if you say it 3 times, it'll show up. So Beetlejuice, 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 and here it comes. I mean, it's like, it's such a testament to the fervent fan base of that show that it like willed itself back by popular demand onto Broadway. I can't think of another show that's like shown up 3 times. Right. That's just like so cool. It's one of those shows that is like the gift that keeps on giving, because all around the country, the tour and everywhere else, people are just like, when's it coming? When's it coming? And so it's kind of amazing that it's coming back. And Halloween for Beetlejuice is like Christmas for everyone else, right? So it's going to be here in the fall. It's going to be right there. It's going to be amazing. Ragtime, geez, I feel like Ragtime is probably one of those shows that every time it gets produced, because of the nature of the content in the show, that they say this is the best time ever in the history of America for Ragtime, because it has like the immigrant story and like the very complex version of like all of the socioeconomic stuff. But this is the best time for Ragtime.
It really is.
It really feels that way. There feels like an urgency to it. And, I was at Lincoln Center the other day for first rehearsal, and Lear de Bastonet, who took over from Andre Bishop as the artistic director, it was her first rehearsal of her first show of what will be a very, very, very long tenure at Lincoln Center.
Right.
And it was so beautiful. Like the passing of the guard to, a person taking over one of the most important cultural arts institution in the world, and to pick Ragtime as their first time out in this day and age, it was like there wasn't a dry eye in the house, and that was the first day of rehearsal. So I'm so excited about the show because the Beaumont has that thrust stage, and people will not only be able to see like the beauty and the depth of the show, but they'll also be able to wrap around it in a way that I think is going to be very powerful, like deeply powerful.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for that show.
Just give me to the Beaumont now. I can't wait.
Same.
I cannot wait.
By the way, we're loading in right now. Like, you won't have to wait that long.
Oh boy.
It's happening. I don't know when this is coming out, but it's going to be soon.
First preview, I might just have to be right there.
Oh my gosh.
I might have to, because I am thrilled, and I can't wait to see the set,
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, the set, which I've not talked about at all publicly, the set is, it is a space that can be extremely spare and like go away at times, and be extraordinarily lush, like at times. And we show the whole depth of the Beaumont sometimes, and sometimes we iris down to this like tiny little moment. And it has like kind of poetry in it, and there's a lot of kind of like swirling movement and pieces that slide in and out. It's meant to be kind of like the sewing together of the fabric of America, right? And it's kind of a reminder that progress has always been charted with like pain and sorrow and beauty.
Absolutely.
And so we're trying to like mirror that in the set design a little bit, where it kind of can get really broad and also like pinpoint accurate.
Yeah, I love it. Well, finally, what is your message to the viewers at home as to why they should come and see this exhibit, come and experience set design? It's something that I feel like can sometimes not be as, brought to the light, and not something that people obviously talk about often. Why is this something that people need to visit when they're in the city?
Well, okay, first of all, I looked away from you as you're asking that question. I'm pouring my eyes around the room, scanning the... First of all, you get to sit on a couch.
You get to sit on this couch.
Just stop right there.
Right.
But beyond that, it's like So many things that are in this room, if you're interested in any of those 5 shows, are one of a kind, only exist. They're one of one. They only exist. Like the original Hamilton off-Broadway model, one of one. That is the original room where it happened, the one that Lynn and Tommy and everyone else held and used a little working turntable to figure out all the blocking that you know in the show.
Yeah.
That's over there on that wall.
Looking at it.
You know, so there's also like step-by-step process of how we go from something that is a sketch to a rendering, to a piece of drafting, to a model, to like take things from 2D to 3D. So I actually think even if you're not a theater fan, but you're just a person who's always wondered how like entertainment things get made, you can come here. There's a 6-minute long video that tells you every single step of the creation, the creative process of making Hamilton, narrated by me, step by step of how we go from research to the real thing. So there's a lot of just like deep dive pieces. You can see all the sketches from Beetlejuice. There's just like a lot of stuff here that if you're a theater fan or a maker, a fan of like making things, you'll come and understand about process.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, David. Remind me how long this exhibit will be here.
This is such a challenging question because I think we might extend.
Oh.
So I think the announced time is like a couple weeks, but I think you might have a month.
Okay.
I can't get into the details.
Right.
But I think that people are liking it a lot, and we might go a little bit longer. But it's going to be gone by early fall.
All I'll say is just get here.
Get here.
Just get here.
Just get
Come
here.
and see the exhibit. Come sit on this couch. David sat here. So many others sat here.
Not a selling point.
Not a selling point.
But I did sit here.
But he's right here, and you'll get to see all of his just magical work that I love seeing and chatting with you about.
Thank you. I love spending time with you.
Thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.